This video is entitled Dimensional at Media Rules and is a companion piece to Chapter 11 of the book, So You Want to Learn to Use HTML and CSS. I'm Jim Renaud from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this video presentation. In this video presentation, I'm going to go into some details of how to use @media rules to allow for a single page to display properly across a smartphone, a tablet, and a PC display. We'll be going into advanced @media selectors through this video. So the @media rule has lots and lots of different things you can do with it. You can set your @media based upon color and aspect ratios and lots of other things, but the easiest way to use it and the most common way to use @media rules are basically with width and height. And I'm just going to show you how to use the @media rule with width. And this is based upon the current standard of the @media rule. For instance, you can see that up above I have 3 different @media rules. Let's go through each of them in detail so that you can see them. @media screen with its curly cues, that media rule applies to all screens regardless of the dimensions of the screen. Look at the second one. It says @media screen and then in parentheses, and those parentheses are required there, width greater than 400 pixels. So if the screen is 300 pixels wide, it would use the first one, but not the second one. If the screen is 401 pixels or more, 401 because greater than 400. If it's 401 or wider, the style in the second will be used, and the style in the first. So it will cascade. The one with the more details will be chosen over the other and overwrite the previous one. So you can see that media rule says, those rules say for all screens, use the first one. For screens greater than 400 pixels wide, use the second one. And look at the third one. The third one there is even more sophisticated because it says @media screen and width greater than 900 and width less than or equal to 1200 pixels. Now, you have to put the unit, pixels, and you need to put parentheses around each one of those expressions. So the parentheses there are required or are proper. And you can use less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to in your expression. You can use ands and ors and nots and parentheses in your expression. But you can see that third media rule would only apply to a screen that's 901 to 1200 pixels. If it's 1201 pixels, that third rule won't apply. Or if it's only 880, it wouldn't apply. So you can make these rules very specific to apply the style to very distinct and very small widths of devices. There is a way that I'm going to recommend, that several other experts out there recommend, on how to create a really good responsive style sheet to your web page. And when you think about all the different dimensions and all the different sizes, the @media rules and the web page, the CSS could become extremely complex. I mean, really crazy complex. So my suggestion is start with your @media screen. Just start with an @media screen, put your curly cues and start putting your style in there. And the first site to do is build your site to look good on a smartphone. Build your site to look good on a skinny screen. And what you can do is you can take your browser and you can shrink your browser down to only be really skinny on the screen. And that'll let you kind of simulate what a smartphone would look like on your computer. Or you could always upload it to your server and test it on your smartphone. Remember, grids and floats and fancy stuff can be hard to navigate on a smartphone. So let's just make the page work simply. Remember also that small fonts are hard to read on a little tiny screen, and great big fonts are a waste of space on a little tiny screen. So keep your fonts and your font sizes simple in your app media screen in your first version of the style sheet, because we'll go through, I'm going to suggest going through 3, but you may go through 4 iterations. And then add margin and paddings to make using touchscreens easier. You might want to put a border around all your A tags or add margin and padding around things that the user needs to touch or click. So that you've kind of made the first version a good smartphone version of your web page. Now, let's talk about second version. So now what I'd like you to do is I would like you to add a second at media rule, actually probably your third because you've got your print at media rule. But I'd like you to add your second at media screen and make it look something like this one. At media screen and width greater than, and I just have the word largest phone there, but you'll put the number 400 pixels, 480 pixels, 500 pixels. I don't know. That's up to you to decide as the web designer, or maybe your client will tell you, or whatever devices you're working with or expect your users to be using will kind of define that width. But you've now kind of got a width in your head, some ideas. So define this rule so that now any device wider than this, the largest phone, will have this second set of style applied as well as the first set of style applied. So now we're going wider. Adjust the margins and the padding because your screen is bigger. So you might be able to shrink some things, or you might be able to have to make things bigger to make the tablet display work right. You may want to use grid and float, but use it sparingly because you're still kind of in a very confined space. Things are very tight. You may want to start really playing with your font sizes and make some things bigger and some things smaller for emphasis, but keep the colors and keep the general feel consistent. We don't want a user to go from the smartphone to the tablet to the PC if they use your website on all 3 devices and it feel really different. If you use different colors and different fonts and then on the 3 different devices, then it's going to become confusing. But if you keep it consistent, so that's why I've said define it first. And if you define it in the at media screen, you don't have to redefine it here because it'll use that first and then cascade to this to use second. Once you have your screen looking great on a smartphone and looking great on a tablet or small device, then add your third at media screen rule, at media screen and width greater than whatever your largest tablet dimension is, whether it be 900, 1000, 1100, I don't know. That's between you and your clients. That's between you and what you want to do with your website. But you kind of saw the dimensions in the previous video, so you kind of know what to do. And now develop the CSS for a big screen. Now develop it for the big screen. Use grids and floats and all the tricks to make it look great. But remember, keep your colors and your font families and your general feel from the previous formats. So you're kind of growing the style organically, starting with the smartphone and then moving to tweaking it for the tablet, and then moving to tweaking it for the big screen. And this way, your style will always feel good and will respond to whatever device your client, whatever device your user wants to use. And that's what modern web design is all about. So after I went through this process with one of my websites, here were my three at media rules, and I don't have any CSS here. I just put a comment statement so you can see that CSS would go there, and I put the break at 480 and 990 on this website that I did. But again, it's up to you for where you think it needs to be. But you can see that you would start with the first one, and then you'd put the rest in, you'd adjust it for the second one, and then you would tweak it for the third one, so that the style in all 3 would apply to big screens. This concludes video 11C. This presentation is copyright 2020 by James Imrano, PhD. You can contact me at jim@renejm.com. Remember, this work is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share Alike 4.0 International License. And I'd like to say thank you so much for giving me a moment of your day.